Hey y'all, Rick Sky here, back again with another live show. And within this show, I'm just going to walk around a little bit and we can chat about whatever. Don't forget, and I know y'all don't, but don't forget to super chat because super chat is something that really helps to keep this channel moving along. So yeah, just going to walk around and talk about stuff. Obviously, Mavic Air 2. Hopefully we'll be here very soon. Obviously with the uncertain times and the shipping challenges and all of that, it's made it hard to predict how soon the the Mavic Air 2 may arrive. But like I said, I ordered mine from epicdroneshow.com as soon as it hit. So got people tuning in here. Welcome aboard, everyone. Hope y'all are doing well today, and decided to change the camera angle a little bit for this live show. Sometimes I just keep the camera down at the ground, and I figured the sky with my fat chin, man, I got to get back to the gym, and it's tough to get back to the gym when the gym is closed. So hopefully all this stuff will clear up here in the next few months, and we'll be able to get back to normalcy, going out and going to the gym and all of that good stuff. So yeah, I know it's been tough, just having to force ourselves to do what's right and not spread this nastiness or contract it, for that matter. I mean, maybe you're not a carrier, maybe you're just someone trying to grab it. I mean, it's not something you want to try to catch, but anyway, yeah, so hope everybody's doing well. I'm just out here trying to lose weight as normal. I tell you, this diet and this quarantine diet, it has not been the best thing, because I was starting to lose weight. My chin was, I was losing that extra chin and all that stuff, and working out hardcore in the gym. And all I've managed to lose during this pandemic is my hair, because I've had to cut it myself. So you can check out that video, how to cut your own hair without making a mess. But this show, let's talk. What do y'all want to talk about? Y'all want to talk about drones? You want to talk about, do you have any questions pertaining to video editing, travel tips, travel recommendations? This show is an open forum for anything that you would like to know. So I mean, we don't have, there's no structured agenda here. So this is a live show. If you're watching this show right now at approximately 7:10 p.m. New York City time, this is a live show, so everything you type, I can see in real time here. I got my live chat on, looking down at my screen to make sure I can see y'all's comments and see the ground in front of me, so I don't trip and fall. So yeah, I hope wherever y'all are in the world that things are going well. My best advice for everyone, most encouraging words, are to just stay active, because the thing is, if you don't stay busy, if you don't keep your mind, ooh, there's an airplane up there, look at that. I would not want to be on that airplane. Scary. Yeah, I don't want to be in any confined space, to be frank. I don't care where that airplane is going. It could be going to Tahiti, and I would say no thank you, not interested. Thanks anyway for the offer. I tell you, there's going to be some travel deals, man. When this stuff comes to a close, there are going to be some epic travel deals, and that's going to be it's going to be great. Problem is, though, is that because of all the stuff, even if this cleared up, until the supply chains clear up, you know, you're going to be limited when you go places as far as like, you know, what you can get to eat and drink and all that. It's going to be, you know, things are hard to source. And I did a no contact at a local grocery store. They had this deal, and I just ordered online through the app and picked up my groceries. Got pretty much everything. The meats were pretty much non-existent, so I didn't get any meats, which that was disappointing, but I've mail ordered those. So I've been able to mail order meats, but I did get some other stuff, man. I got some frozen fruit. I got some potatoes, and obviously with the potatoes, you can do a lot with those. So stay tuned for my air fry with Irix guy video updates, because air frying updates. Hello, Trep. Welcome aboard, man. Trep, by the way, is one of the loyal viewers here on the Irix Guys Adventure channel. I think, Trep, I think you make about, actually, I think you may make 100% of the live shows. That's tremendously appreciated. It really is. Yeah, man. Yeah, it is. And that's the thing. I mean, you're tuning in. Hopefully you find this to be entertaining. Any questions you have, I noticed earlier, and see, I remember my comments on YouTube. You were asking about, or you weren't asking, but you just made the comment that, you know, hey, I haven't gotten a microphone in 2 years. So, you know, if you're looking for microphone advice, man, that's something I'm happy to help you out with. Now, right now, this audio, I don't have my good mic on this. This is just internal iPhone audio, but, you know, for studio quality sound on a budget, I've got some recommendations, man. I've got mics that I use in the field when I do, you know, a lavalier clip on. If I don't want to use the lavalier and just use the mic itself, you can find all these on my website. Let's see, Tom says, getting outside and using my Mavic Air 1, life has slowed down, so takes an effort to remain active. Hang in there. Yeah, it definitely does, man. And, you know, I think, the Rode Wireless Go, man, I love mine. And I also love the Rode Video Micro. And I found that, and by the way, everybody out there watching, you can find both of these microphones on my website, irixguy.com. But I found with the Rode Video Micro that I've started using it almost exclusively when I'm away from the studio. Because what's cool about it being a shotgun mic and no external battery requirements, I'm able to plug it in to my Sony Alpha A7R4 ILCE7RM4, and I'm able to capture outstanding audio. And the cool part about it is that with the Rode Video Micro, not only do I get myself high quality audio, but I can get some of the environment. So if I'm out in the wilderness and I want to get some of the bird sounds, and, you know, maybe there's a creek or something, you know, I can get all that with the Rode Video Micro. So, and, you know, it obviously no batteries at all. It's just powering itself from the camera's battery. Now, the Rode Wireless Go, I use a ton. You know, if I'm doing a professional thing where I need to run a lavalier mic, I do that with the Rode Wireless Go. If I don't care what it looks like, and I think it looks cool, you'll see that thing on my shirt, you know, the little black microphone, it says Rode, it's got the fuzzy thing on it. I use that a lot of the time when I don't even want to take the time to attach a lavalier microphone to it, because it's just it sounds good, man. And running my own channel, I don't have to hide my microphone. It's not like I'm doing anything that's, people see the microphone, ooh, I'm offended, man, I saw your mic, you got to hide your mic. No, I don't let that bother me. I mean, I don't care if people see my microphone in certain videos. That's fine. Trev says, I would also have to buy the USB-C adapter for Osmo Action. Let's see. Sorry, my chat window. I would also have to buy the audio to USB-C adapter for Osmo Action. Yeah, now if you put, speaking of that, that'd be really cool, man. I never, with Osmo Action, I never used an external mic. The mic internal was, for an action camera was pretty good. Now what you can do, I don't know if you've thought about this, but if you've got just a digital audio recorder, you could record with that and not use your mic jack in the action camera. And then you could synchronize the audio, the Osmo Action's audio, with your externally recorded higher quality audio within post-production, and just mute your Osmo Action's internal audio, leaving only your externally recorded higher quality audio. So that's always an option. And what's funny, I used to use an external recorder a lot, and then primarily I used the A7R4. So now with it, I'm either sticking in my Rode Video Micro, or I'm sticking my Rode Wireless Go receiver into it. So I mean, I tell you, I love those things, man. Rode and they just released something, and I haven't received it yet, but it's called it's made by Rode. It's called the Interview Go. And to look at it, it's like, man, that's kind of corny. A Trep says, I need to save for a DSLR camera because I don't have a normal camera for videos. Man, I would go mirrorless. And honestly, if I was you, talking about bang for buck, I mean, if you want to keep the spin down a little bit, check out the A6400 from Sony. Mirrorless camera. Does not use the larger batteries like the 6600 does. But man, it's got the LCD on the back. It can pop up so you can see yourself face on video. It's an Aps-C camera. I mean, super, I don't know. And I may have a little bit of bias. Since I started using Sony mirrorless, man, I couldn't imagine using anything else just because it's great. I mean, the video that I get from Sony mirrorless is better than any camcorder I've ever used. And then I also get the luxury of high quality stills, with my Sony mirrorless cameras. And obviously right now I run the A7R4, but I mean, they're just, and see, in the beginning, Sony, it's on my website just go to iritsguy.com, and you can click the link there and you can find all of my, but if you click the link, if you expand this video's description and then click the link there to the camera that I'm using, it'll say camera body. If you click that, that'll take you to the A7R4 that I use. But once you're there, once you click that link first, thanks, because that helps my channel. Once you click that link first, then go there and search for A6400, and you'll find the Aps-C. And just to explain, and not to get overly technical, but what's the difference between the Sony Alpha Aps-C cameras and the Sony Alpha full frame cameras? So we'll start with full frame. So the full frame, examples of that, the A7R4 that I use, A7R3 that I previously used, A7 III that I previously used, and then also A7R2 that I previously used. Those are full frame cameras. Now, the full frame cameras in the Sony universe, there's two types of mirrorless lenses. There are FE, which are your full frame lenses, and then there are just E. Now the E, those are your Aps-C lenses. Now, if you get a full frame camera, you can use either FE, which, for example, FE 2470 GM, which is what I use. You can find it linked within this video's description. If I slap that on my A7R4 full frame camera, I'm going to get 7mm focal length. Now, if I slap that same lens on an APS-C camera, such as A6400, A6600, etc., it would work, but it would be more zoomed because it would be an APS-C camera. So instead of 24-70, and I don't know the equivalents, but you would see instead of 24-70, it would be slightly more zoomed in APS-C on an APS-C body. Likewise, with my A7R4 full frame camera, if I kick it into APS-C mode, I can in essence zoom that 24-70 lens into APS-C mode, if that makes sense. So if you get a full frame Sony, it's kind of like having an APS-C and a full frame camera in one. So, you know, the full frame, you can use FE lenses, which on the full frame will function just like it says on the lens, 24-70 GM FE lens. It'll be 24-70 millimeter if it's on a full frame camera. But if I switch that full frame camera to APS-C mode, that 24-70 millimeter lens then takes on whatever the APS-C equivalent would be. So if I've got the full frame camera in APS-C mode, or if I've got a dedicated APS-C camera, such as the A6400 or A6600 that I mentioned, it would take on a different focal range. So where I'm going with this is that and likewise, I could buy just an E-mount Sony lens and attach to my FE, you know, A7R4 full frame camera, and it would function. So where I'm going with this, if you start out with mirrorless, and Sony has a bunch of options down there. There's third-party lenses. Tamron makes great lenses. Sigma makes great lenses. You know, there's all kinds of lens options beyond Sony available for, you know, Sony FE or Sony E-mount. But start out with Sony mirrorless, and you go with something more base, like an APS-C A6400 camera, and then you start buying the lenses. You can use those lenses on full frame cameras that are, you know, that are FE mount. So, you know, if you're buying the glass, it's kind of like you get the camera body. If you want to start out, you know, kind of on a more tight budget, and then you just build up your lens collection over time. And then if you upgrade your camera body, if you decide to go full frame, you've already got lenses to use. So, you know, that's the way I would recommend. Yeah, sorry about that buffering. I just caught a little bit of buffering. But yeah, I'd start out with A6400 for the budget camera body route. And then instead of buying a E-mount lens, what I would do is buy a, this is a, I have to leave. Have a good day. Trip, welcome aboard, man. Thanks for tuning in, and you have a good day, man. But, yeah, so for, you know, camera advice for everyone, you know, start out, you know, if you want to start out on the cheap with Sony mirrorless, go APS-C, and then you can always, you know, switch to a full frame Sony in the future. And, you know, at that point, you've probably already collected lenses. Right now, the lenses that I have for their full frame, I've got 24-70, the 24-70 G Master, which 24-70 is just, is kind of the ultimate focal length. I mean, there's a lot of people that, if they just have one zoom lens, that 24-70 is probably the, you know, the one-stop shop for everything. I mean, you can, on 24 millimeters, you've got a good lens for landscape. At 70 millimeters, you've got a good lens for most portraiture. You know, 70 millimeter, you can get some really good bokeh out of that, especially with the 24-70 G Master that that has a you know, an f2.8 aperture. So yeah, if you just got one lens, probably 24-70. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing what can be done with a Sony mirrorless camera. You know, for video perspective, man, it's the best in class in my opinion. And the photos are super awesome. And in the beginning with Sony Alpha, there was perceived hesitation by a lot of photography or videography professionals. And that perceived hesitation to adopt Sony mirrorless, in my opinion, was, you know, they were accustomed to using camera systems, DSLR systems that have been out for many years, that had a lot of lenses available, first-party and third-party lenses. They were probably heavily invested in their glass, you know, in their lenses. You know, they probably had, you know, budgets vary, but you know how much photography equipment is. Potentially a serious photographer or videographer that's been in the business for a few years, I mean, easily, lenses alone, easily $5,000-$10,000 or more worth of lenses. So for a serious photographer that's been using and, you know, and collecting additional lenses throughout the years, for them to say, oh, there's a new system called mirrorless out, you know, let's do that. Well, how do you do it? Oh, you don't sprinkler watering your yard daily 90-degree weather without, that's right, Layla. Yeah, so if you don't, you know, if you don't want to switch, that makes sense because you got all that money invested. The beauty of Sony mirrorless is that you can get adapters that'll work for various lens types. There's adapters for Sony, I mean, there's adapters for Canon, there's adapters for Nikon, and the list goes on. So if you wanted to get involved with Sony and you already had, you know, a lot of lenses from, you know, say Canon camera system or maybe the Nikon camera system, you could get adapters and, you know, and use those lenses on your new Sony camera, Sony mirrorless camera body. Yeah, I mean, it is pretty crazy. It is really crazy. But the thing that's impressed me the most, and it was STK's Adventure Channel, youtube.com/summertime Ken. We did a YouTube collab video, or videos rather, in in Bermuda, and he turned me on to Sony. He was using this was many years ago, but he was using the Sony RX, you know, non-interchangeable lens camera, and I was blown away. I had a Canon at the time, and I was like, man, he can get from this Sony point and shoot the color, the video quality, the autofocus. I mean, it was like, man, this is blowing my Canon DSLR out of the water. And I made the switch to Sony. I've never looked back. Somebody was asking earlier about the Lumix GH5. Now, I had, let's see, was it GH5 or was it was the first 4K version. Was that GH2 or GH3 or GH4? I can't remember. It was the first Lumix G series that did 4K video. That's the one I had. And you can check out my videos from St. Kitts and Nevis. And that's the mirrorless camera that I was filming, you know, my high quality videos with. It was a great camera. It, you know, the lens was very sharp, but at least for me, with the Lumix G series, my biggest, I guess I'll just call it pain point like it is that, and keep in mind, I film a lot of videos, but my focus, where you know, everybody's got their own video and photo style. My focus has always been, you know, getting to the location, capturing the location with as little lag time as possible. You know, sure, I'm not the guy that's so rushed that he just comes out and pulls a camera out and starts filming haphazardly. Haphazardly. I'm not that guy. But I'm also not the guy that goes down to the beach or wherever and sits his camera on the tripod and spends an hour and a half with light meters and all of this stuff trying to perfect the shot. I guess you would say my typical initial setup for professional videos that I film for YouTube are, you know, when I get to the shoot location, I probably spend 5-10 minutes or so just to make sure I've got everything level, make sure I've got the, you know, the focus nailed like I want it to be. Make sure there's nothing in the background that looks visually displeasing. Make sure that, you know, that I've got my, you know, everything fine-tuned. And that is where the Lumix G series, and again, I used the first iteration. Was it G3, G2, G3, G4? I can't remember. But the first one that did 4K video, and my biggest gripe with it, and it did a good job, and you'll see I've got a lot of good videos from that. And while I was using that Lumix G camera for 4K video, camcorder FDR-AX 100, which was good. You know, for a camcorder, it was good. I will tell you that even the high-end camcorders, if they've got built-in lens, that built-in lens is not going to provide the image quality that you can get from an interchangeable lens camera for video. So for that reason, I was kind of in a weird spot, professional video-wise, because I had a very nice Sony FDR-AX 100 that would do 4K video. The autofocus, the saturation was wonderful. The ease of use was basically idiot-proof. But the image quality, when compared to the Lumix G series, was not as good. Now, the Lumix came with its own set of quirks. The autofocus on the Lumix was nowhere near as good as the FDR AX 100 camcorder that I was using in St. Kitts. The saturation was not as good, and being able to autofocus, you know, again, I couldn't achieve the autofocus like I could with the FDR AX 100. However, what was good was the image quality, because I was using the higher end, I forget what they were called, but the higher end Lumix lenses. And I was able to get really good, you know, really good sharpness. But the overall simplicity of use wasn't there. So what steered me towards the Sony Alpha series. You know, and initially I was like, man, you know, those are expensive. But then I was like, well, if I can get such a good level of saturation from FDR AX 100, and I kind of had a transitional period. So after the Lumix, I went with the Sony RX10. I think it was a 10-2. It's the first RX10 that did 4K. And it was kind of a, you know, it had a permanently married lens. It was not an interchangeable lens camera. But what it did, the RX10 series Sony, it enabled me to capture that outstanding saturation that I was accustomed to from the FDR AX 100 Sony camcorder, but also had the luxury of still photos, and I had the luxury of a better lens. You know, it was permanently mated, but it was a Zeiss lens, a Sony Zeiss lens. So that was a good in the middle. And then I said, you know what? Forget about the camcorder. Forget about the G-Series Lumix. Forget about the RX10, I think it was RX10 II, with the permanently mated lens. And I'm just gonna go for it. So I went with interchangeable lens, was A7R2, incredible camera. Now A7R2, autofocus wasn't so hot. Battery life was not so hot either. But what I did is, I used it. I would focus manually, and I was able to achieve out results. For face on video segments, I was able to get that awesome defocused background, also commonly referred to as bokeh. I was able to achieve professional results on after spending a reasonable amount of money for the camera body and the lens. And, I started out with the A7R2 with a basic, it was a Sony Zeiss. It was a Sony Zeiss 24-70, which I later learned was apparently the least sharp of the Sony FE mirrorless lenses. But it was still really good, and the saturation was awesome. That segued me into better lenses. I switched to Zeiss Batis, really good lenses for photos and videos. Fixed focal length. You can't zoom with those, they're fixed. So I used those. And, this was in the earlier days of Sony mirrorless when there weren't as many lenses available. So then Sony comes out with G-Master. And at that time, I switched from A7R2 to A7 III, and then, got into the G-Master lenses. And after using, the Zeiss Batis and the Zeiss Voxia for a few years, I got accustomed to that weight. The Zeiss Voxia and Zeiss Batis, those lenses are fixed focal length, prime lenses, super sharp, super good saturation, but they were also very light. And, after using those for a few years, when I switched to G-Master, initially, the 24-70 GM, 24-70 G-Master, initially I was kind of upset by the weight, because I've gotten used to those ultralight prime lenses and the camera body that's super lightweight, a lot lighter than a DSLR. So, that switch was kind of difficult. But then after using the 24-70 G-Master for a few weeks, I'm like, you know what? I can carry this one lens and keep it on my camera probably 95% of the time, or I can carry multiple prime lenses and, every time I have to change a lens, risk introducing dust into the camera sensor. So what I do, I keep the 24-70 G-Master on my camera, on my A7R4, I would say 90-95% of the time. And I also use the 16-35 G-Master if I'm out and I want to get some really wide angle videos or photos of landscapes, like beaches and all that. And then if I need ultra zoom for bears and stuff, I'll use the G-Master 100-400. So, with that trilogy of lenses, you can pretty much do anything. And then I still use the Batis 85, because that's the thing about Zeiss, the Zeiss prime lenses, Zeiss Batis. When you take a photo of that, and I use it I've used it for video, but primarily I use it for taking portraits of people. You take a photo with that, somebody really knows photography, and they look at the bokeh, the defocused background. When you shoot it with a Zeiss Batis, whereas with a G-Master, and the G-Master bokeh looks great, doesn't look distracting. It's kind of circular, circular bokeh balls. The Zeiss Batis is unique because it creates bokeh, instead of bokeh balls, they're kind of a cat's eye shaped. So, if customers of mine are looking at any of my professional photography, they're gonna, if they know anything about cameras, when they see the portraits that were shot with the Zeiss Batis, they'll immediately be able to tell because of the cat's eye bokeh. So yeah, I mean, but for video, professional photography, man, I can't imagine using anything other than Sony. And you know, it's just it's a sweet system. The camera bodies are very lightweight, very small. The battery life is good in the current generation. Anything from A7 III, A7R3, and A7R4 like I use now. And you know, on the APS-C side of the fence, A6600. That one has the new battery type. The original models, the A7R2, for example, I used a battery called a MPFW50, which the battery life on that was horrible, but the battery was so small and so lightweight that it was easy to carry multiple batteries. But now, with my A7R4, with a larger but still physically small battery, I can take typically 2 batteries and video all day. Now, out of best practice, obviously I take extras. So I'll take 3. That way, if I drop one in the ocean or whatever, you know, I've got another battery. Or if electricity fails and I'm unable to recharge my batteries overnight, I've got extra batteries. So yeah, I mean, it's an incredible system. If you haven't used Sony Alpha for video, you're really missing out. And I mean, it's really changed the simplicity. The biggest thing for me, and again, the path I took, you know, from Lumix G series, and then, you know, went over to, as I mentioned, FDR AX100 camcorder on Sony, and then from FDR AX100 camcorder on Sony to RX10 II, which was a non-removable lens Sony. You know, once I learned the Sony image, Sony menu system, and once I learned you know, how to, when I download the videos, now when I import the videos into Final Cut Pro 10, I know if I'm at the beach that when I'm using A7R4 and I'm using, let's say, Sony G Master 16 to 35, that when I import it into Final Cut Pro 10, that there's a minor saturation adjustment that I'm going to make, and there may be a little bit that I do to the exposure, and I've got all that in my head, and it never fails me. For the photography side of the house, for the same camera body and the same lenses, I use Lightroom, and within it, I can, you know, with my zoom lenses, I can go in and flatten the raw image to remove the you know, the barrel distortion from the zoom lens, and it looks pretty much the same as a prime lens. It's incredible. So yeah, I mean, this is a long rant about cameras, but man, you know, y'all ask and I respond. You know, it's something I've learned a lot about. You know, I don't consider myself to be a professional photographer or videographer. I'm just this guy that does Irish Guys Adventure Channel. So, I mean, that's my thing, man. Irish Guys Adventure Channel, youtube.com/Irish Guy, where you're watching this. Watching me walk around and shed some pounds. Because I got fat, man. I got fat during this pandemic. So, yeah, but I mean, those are Sony mirrorless, man. Once you get the bug, you probably probably won't want to use any other type of camera system. But anyway, so what else we got going on? That was a long rant about Sony, man. Super long. And supposedly they're releasing a new either A7S III and or A7 IV. So those ought to be exciting. Rumored to be getting 4K 60, which would be a first for Sony Alpha. But yeah, guys, we're just rocking and rolling here, getting exercise, losing weight. So it's good stuff. Tell you, man, holding this phone, I need to get some sort of like mount that I put on my head so I just walk and talk, you know. It'd be kind of cool. But man, thank y'all for all the super chats yesterday. I did a live show from the studio, and super chats were flowing like I don't know what. I mean, they were coming through, so that was intense. Anybody that's watching, y'all can do super chat or super sticker. Just click that little super chat icon down in the chat area. But yeah, it's man, these live shows. I tell you though, live streaming equipment right now is next to impossible to find. So, you know, if you've got webcams or stuff you're not using, probably a great time to put those up on your favorite auction or you know, sales site, because they're in high demand. I'm lucky I have one webcam because I haven't switched to the ATEM solution in the studio yet, where I'll be able to bring in the Sony Alphas for live streams. But that's gonna be cool when that happens. You know, live streaming from the Sony A7R4. Talk about good image quality. Because with smaller sensor cameras like a smartphone or a webcam, you typically can't get the video quality just because the camera lens is so small, and typically the materials in the lens, you know, good glass, it's you know, it's a lot smaller than a mirrorless or DSLR lens. So you just can't the video quality with that you can from a dedicated camera system. So just kind of, you know, a pro tip there. Yeah, walking around, burning off all this fat. Whew. Don't even know how many calories. That's the thing, I'm not even measuring or tracking the calories. I'm just walking and rambling. And, you know, walking and talking too. Dale says, hello, Irish guy. Question, have you run into choppy video with the Sony A7R III? Anytime I record video in 4K, it's very choppy. Here's what I would ask. When you're encountering, first of all, I haven't, but when you're encountering that choppy video, are you seeing it if you play the video back from your screen on the back of your camera? Do you see it choppy there? Or is it only choppy after you've imported into, say, your Mac or PC to edit? And that's important. Tell me when you're seeing the choppiness, and then I'll steer you to what I think it may be. Great question. I love these tech questions. Make me think. Yes, choppy playback on the screen on the camera. Okay. So my next question is, has it always done this, or did it start recently? Because if you know that can dictate what's causing it. So where I'm going with this, first thing I would check, there's a few things. First of all, I'd make sure that I have the most current firmware from Sony installed on the camera. So just Google, I think Sony may call that one, I think if you just do, I think it's ILCE7RM or R3. Yes, always run into this occasionally when 4K. 1080, okay, here's your problem then. So two things. First thing, update your camera's firmware. Go to Google and search for Sony A7, or I think you said A7R3 firmware download, update your camera's firmware. But your problem is probably the SD card that you're using, because 4K is recording, I think, and I have to look at my camera, I think it's 100 megabits per second, which in short, 4K requires a faster SD card. And what's probably happening is that the bottleneck is probably your SD card, and it's not fast. You said that the 1080p looks good, so it's fast enough for 1080, but when you kick it up to 4K, the SD card is likely the bottleneck and is probably preventing your camera from capturing 4K reliably. You know, it's probably not fast enough of a card. That would be my guess. What I can do, and I'll do this after I return to the studio, but if you're on my IRIX, facebook.com/IRIX guy, drop me a message, and at some point this evening when I'm back in the studio, I'll send you a link to the cards like I use. And these SD cards, and I'll forget the speed because I'm not in front of my camera looking at them, but they're affordable, and I've used them with my A7 III, A7R3, and also A7R4. And with those three cameras, I've never encountered 4K video recording issues. So, you know, that would be, you know, if I had to guess, you know, make an educated guess as to what's causing that based upon your, you know, the symptoms where your 1080 works, your 4K doesn't. I think that's probably going to be it. But, you know, just to keep everything current and, you know, smile on the Sony camera's face, you probably want to update the firmware too. But, you know, in this scenario, I wouldn't expect a firmware update to resolve your issue. You know, my guess is that it's going to be the SD card. And SD cards, I tell you, it's gotten really confusing how they used to, in the past, in the earlier days of GoPro. I remember, you know, the micro SDs for GoPro, it was, there was a big point where it was, oh, it's got to be class 10 or better. That's not the case anymore. There's so many specs for SD cards now, especially with, you know, with high-end 4K cameras like you've got, that require, you know, very specialized SD cards. So, yeah, Dale, shoot me a message on IRIX guy, facebook.com/IRIX guy, and I will toss you the links to the cards like I use this evening. And hopefully, again, fingers crossed, but hopefully that'll be the root cause of your problem. And I feel, you know, from my experience with the cameras, I feel it probably will be. No problem, man. Thank you for your viewership. And like I said, these cards, they're inexpensive, but, you know, they're fast, and they've, I mean, you've seen my A7 III, A7R3, and A7 IV 4K videos, and these are the cards that I'm using. And that was a beauty when I switched among those three cameras. I never had to buy new SD cards because they work for all three of them. But yeah, I'll get that to you this evening, man. I'll be on the lookout for your message. So, great question, great camera question. Hopefully that will resolve the 4K video recording quality issue for Dale. Does anyone else have questions? This is a great time to ask questions and give me something to think about, exercise my brain while I exercise my feet. This is good stuff. It's funny, man, people, when you're close to a road, and I'm keeping my distance from everybody, but people just look at you funny when you got a phone out and you're talking to it. But it doesn't matter, man. I mean, this is fun. I think it's fun. I hope y'all think it's fun. Obviously, I think y'all do, because there's a lot of people on here, which is appreciated. And yeah, it's always good to exercise the mind. A mind is a terrible, what was that commercial a long time ago? A mind is a terrible thing to waste. Was that some sort of, I can't remember what that was. Was it drugs or something like that? It was a slogan for something. So that's funny, Dale. I just saw your pop-up on Facebook. So I've got it in my box. When I get back, man, I'll get that right over to you, sir. That is stupendous. So yeah, it's super cool stuff. I tell you, I'm ready for this to be over with. I mean, it's thanks again. I've been pulling my hair out with this. I have shaved all my hair off, actually, most of it, because the hair salons are closed. So I just do it yourself haircut, and hopefully that'll work, man. You know, I don't want to become overly confident, but I will give this a very probable 90% chance of fixing your problem. So hopefully it will. But I think it. I don't know. Yeah, if it and also, you know, to further reinforce the probability that's likely that, you know, since it's doing it from the when you play back the 4K video from the screen on the back of your phone, you know that rules out any sort of bottleneck with the computer that you're using to edit the video. So, you know, for that reason, I feel that the bottleneck is likely your SD card speed, is what I would guess. But yeah, man, I'll get that over to you, and we'll see if that resolves the issue. Hopefully it will. Hopefully so. So what else we got? Any other camera questions? Any sort of drone questions? Obviously, Mavic Air 2 right around the corner. Should be here, well, hopefully any day now. I haven't, mine hasn't shipped from epicdroneshow.com yet, but I'm expecting it to any day now. So, yeah, good stuff. Super good. Burned about not 1,000, but about 600 calories so far, which isn't bad. Multitasking. Getting the exercise. Camera has a current firmware. What write speed cards do you tend? Well, see, that's what I got to get. I got to check my link to what I use, because I don't know off the top of my head. The ones that I use, if you look at them and the recommended, the recommended speed or whatever, I think mine may be slightly faster. And then there's also, to add to the confusion, and you know, I kind of became victim of this initially. To add to the confusion, there's different, the way that they display the speed of the card is not always cut and dry. So I mean, you know, you're looking at things that you think fast enough, but you know, once you stick it in, you know, you're getting that choppy video, which isn't good. So anyway, but yeah, this, hey man, it works in mine. You got the most current firmware. You know, I feel pretty good about it working in yours too. So we'll see what happens. I can't wait for your update to know if it worked or not. But yep. Just walking and rambling. So it's funny, everybody driving down the street. What's that idiot doing, looking at his phone? I don't care. Yeah, so live streaming, was talking about the other night in the studio, Irish Guy's live show. And man, the streaming gear, obviously because of the pandemic we're all part of, is really hard to come by. So we've, you know, it's, I'm hoping I get my hands on that here in the next few months. I mean, realistically, it may be many months before that stuff becomes readily available. But it is what it is. And, you know, at least, you know, during a time like this, been able to work on the other enhancements like the sound panels or the acoustic panels, and you know, enhancements like that are easy to source, and, you know, being able to install those components and not have you know, not experience any delays with getting the equipment. So that was pretty good. So now we're gonna do, and I tell you what, I'm gonna have to put it on the calendar, but tomorrow evening we're gonna have to do a really big live show, and I'm going to do that from the studio. So, you know, be thinking of any questions, you know, comments, questions, whatever you want to know. We can talk about, you know, camera tutorial, drone tutorial. I don't remember subscribing. Hey, well, thanks for your sub. It's appreciated. Again, this is an independent YouTube channel, so, you know, it's viewers like everybody here that, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, y'all all add to the pot of fun here and make this doable. So I really appreciate it. That's pretty cool though. So you said that you don't remember subscribing. So how did you stumble upon the live show? Just out of curiosity. Were you on the channel at the time, or did it pop up because you're a subscriber? Speaking of that, everybody, if YouTube is constantly changing their sorry about that, I hit some buffering. Yeah, what I was saying is, you can, if you ring that bell icon, that'll notify you whenever I post another video. And I think it'll also notify you for the you know, for the live shows like this. So just something cool to do. You know, if you haven't done it already, you know, be sure to ring that bell icon and be notified whenever I'm live or posting, you know, a new video, or have posted rather a new video. So yeah, that's really cool. Well, thank you for dropping in. I'm glad you found this. Yep, so we're just walking and getting this exercise. I think what I'm going to do, because Dale, I know he wants to get that memory card situation resolved, I'm going to end this live show. We're about an hour into it. And again, I'm going to do a live show tomorrow evening. So be sure to tune in. And probably what I'll do when I get back to the studio is I'll probably go ahead and schedule tomorrow evening's live show. And then that way, you know, we'll have an even larger turnout live. So I'm excited. Hope y'all are excited. You know, thanks again for your viewership, your subscriptions, sharing with others, your super chats. It's incredible. You know, it's really appreciated. So y'all be safe. You know, watch out for yourself and watch out for others in this time of pandemic. Y'all have a good day.